Okay, what's going on guys? So today I just wanted to cover a Warlock build, but this is going to be a smaller video because I just don't feel like this is a build that needs a lot of work to it. So treat this like a mini build that's just basic and simple and it does what it does. So you may or may not be aware that the Apotheosis Veil had a rework or a buff, so before you wasn't able to really spam abilities with it, but now with the buff, what it does, it allows you to get infinite abilities for all and any abilities for 8 seconds. So using this with the Warlock Solar subclass and fusion grenades, we can achieve sort of a pre-nerf Starfire setup, where you can just spam grenades and rockets to potentially get the best DPS in the game. Now I haven't fully tested the DPS numbers on this thing, but for what it offers, it does a pretty good job, and since we have a bunch of artifact perks affecting Solar this season, it doesn't make the build totally useless, since the only thing the exotic is affecting is the abilities after the super ends, which isn't going to be so often. So you will get the infinite radiant and restoration effects on top while just running and gunning. Now with the build, the basic way of how it works is you just place down a well of radiance and then spam fusion grenades for 6 to 8 seconds while firing a stasis rocket with chill clip like Bump in the Night that has a demo perk to auto reload when throwing grenades. Similar to the Starfire build pre-nerf. I wouldn't say it's as good as the pre-nerf Starfire in my opinion for long DPS phases, but it does a pretty neat job for quick DPS within a short time. And since we have multiple buffs and debuffs stacking for the extra damage, it just makes this build even more lethal. So we're going to have the Well Radiance as our global buff for 25% extra damage, the Revitalizing Blast for a 15% debuff, and the Torch for a 5% buff stacking with all other buffs. So you're basically just going to town with that DPS, and if you want to take it a step further, you can use the Argent Ordnance for a further 15% damage which stacks with Surge mods that have another 22% damage. So basically in total, just on your own, if you can throw down a well for the buff, use the first grenade to debuff the enemy, use your chill clip rocket to boost weapon damage further, and have armor charge stacks for Argent Ordnance and a weapon surge, you could be pulling off a total of an extra 212% damage increase to your rockets, as well as your abilities, while also spamming fusion grenades in the process, which is just crazy. So for the build, what you want are just the exotic so that you can get the infinite grenades for 8 seconds, a stasis rocket with chill clip to debuff the enemy, or just any rocket and have an ally do the debuffing, a Well Radiance for the global buff, a fusion grenade, the Touch of Flame aspect, these 4 fragments to keep radiant and restoration, these artifact perks, mostly just the touch, the perk to weaken champions, and Argent Ordnance along with weapon surge mods. And with this exact setup, you will be able to deal some serious damage without having to rely on bigger debuffs from other players like a tether or a tractor cannon. This is honestly quite a strong setup to use specifically for dealing with bosses, so it's a great build to use if you want to pull off more damage in things like raids and dungeons. But the difficulty for using this build to pull off all that damage is going to be pretty hard, not gonna lie.